Welcome back to Is It Still Good, the channel where we watch older films and let you know if they still hold up. Today, we're going to get into one of my childhood favorite films of all time, 1988's Willow. But first, let's try to sell a book. And we're back! Okay, Ron Howard film, 1988 Willow, runs 2 hours, 6 minutes. And this was written by George Lucas. The music, one of my favorite scores of all time by James Horner, just crushes it. I love the Willow music. It is so good, in fact, that you see it recycled in movies today all the time. I see it in, especially trailers. I hear Willow music all the time. And it's like, man, I know that's Willow music. Who you fooling? So, you youngins may not know about Willow, but grab a pew. Let me explain something to you. I wrote here, if you don't like Willow, then fuck you. No, it's just a great movie, and it did hold up. I mean, for most of you, I think that there's going to be some cheesy moments and this and that. I mean, this movie cuts right to the core of who I am as a human being. The movies that shaped who you are, this is one of them for me. This was the movie that made me want to be a protector type when I grew up. Mad Mardigan's arc in this film, for whatever reason, really resonated with me as a kid. And I really started getting into swordsmanship, and I don't know. I grew up to be in many protector roles, and I think this film had a hand in helping me decide that when I was very, very young. I do think I saw this in theaters, but I can't remember exactly. I was 8 or 9 at the time. But I did watch it on VHS a ton of times. All the time. And this was one of my jams, the original Star Wars trilogy, Willow, also Masters of the Universe. I was a big He-Man fan at the time. But this and Neverending Story, I would say, were my two favorite films growing up. And you could throw The Princess Bride in there somewhere in the background. But probably if I had to pick a favorite film from my youth, before Predator 1 took over, I would say it would be Willow. Some of the effects are still pretty good. They were cutting edge at the time. They won awards for that. And for whatever reason, the music in this movie just chokes me up. It just cuts right to the core of me emotionally. I love the music in this. It's so sad. I love that they used real little people in the casting. It just adds a really special touch to this movie. Everything's very practical for the most part. The matte paintings are gorgeous. The acting is pretty solid. For the most part. I mean, there's some cheeseball stuff going on, but it's forgivable in the format that it's in. It's a grand adventure with great messaging, I think. It can get super dark, but it's still lighthearted. I love how dark it gets. Right in the beginning, it gets super, super dark. I mean, it starts off that way. And Warwick Davis was only 17 at the time, and he was a great leading man. He really carries the film. He does a great job. Still holds up his performance. And he was a baby. He was a kid. Mad Mardigan is hilarious. Val Kilmer was definitely trying in this performance. One of my favorite Val Kilmer performances is in this movie. And as I said, this was the film that turned me onto that protector role and kind of gave me something to shoot for as a young guy. Made me pursue strength and honor, in a way. So I do credit some of that to this film because I really got into sword fighting. We used to fight with wiffle ball bats. And at a very young age, I quickly learned that the skinny yellow ones were the best because they would hurt the most and they were the fastest. So that's what I carried. And I was very serious about it. And that was right around the time that I was going Willow crazy. Willow and Jedi crazy. Probably at the same time. Billy Barty has a great line in this. He asks Willow, "The power to control the world is in which finger?" And Willow thinks about it for a little bit and, he picks one of Billy's fingers and it's not the right one, obviously. And then later he realizes that the power to control the world is in his own finger. And that's the correct answer. And I thought that was a great message for young people out there. I don't know, there's a bunch of that. Has one of my favorite scenes in the world, one of my favorite chase scenes in the world. The wagon chase scene is just too much fun. Even at 42 years old, I'm sitting there laughing, giggling like an idiot. I did get emotional a couple of times in this movie, rewatching it. So either there's some sort of sentimental memories tied to it that are just personal, and or James Horner's soundtrack just crushes. And I don't know. But to me, this movie harkens back to a simpler time in my life. Obviously, I was a kid. And, I don't know. I love it. I still love it. I still think it's great. It's equal parts exciting, funny, scary, dark. It's the perfect movie to watch with your kids, I think. It's totally cheesy in some parts, but it breaks the tension. So it's kind of like needed. You know, sometimes you need that cheese, right? It's a good mix of magic and swordplay. I really like the even balance of both. You know, as a sword guy, I appreciate us folk getting our due. It's got a good, satisfying ending as well. So it's abrupt, but it's good. It had a budget of like, what, 35 million? It made 137 million. It made money. You know, it's very much The Hobbit, don't get me wrong. George Lucas is not known for his originality. You know, all his ideas can be traced back to a certain source, it appears, to me anyway. But that's okay. This is done right. I mean, look at the new Hobbit films, for example. I mean, I can't watch those. They're awful to me. I mean, they're okay. It might be a guilty pleasure viewing for me, but there's plenty of better movies to watch than the new Hobbit films, namely Willow. I would watch Willow over the new Hobbit films any day, all day, every day. And I stand behind that, and I always will. And it's not because I'm sentimental about this film. It's just a better time. It's just a better time. That's it. It's a good 2 hours of your life. I highly recommend. If you got kids, I think you should show it to them. It's pretty cool. It teaches you about humility, teaches you about bravery, loyalty, all these great themes, but it doesn't hit you over the head. It's tastefully done. There's a lot of stuff in it for adults. I mean, there's definitely some adult parts in it. There's a part where Mad Mardigan's got to dress as a lady to evade this woman's husband who's coming home, and he kind of like feels her up. You know, it's a little weird. And then a fight ensues, and that leads to like, you know, the most amazing chase scene that I can think of. I love that chase. Still, it's just well done. And that music in that chase is just like, that's the music I want if I'm ever being chased. You know, I want to be lighthearted about it. I want to be optimistic and hopeful, because some people operate their best when they're optimistic and hopeful. You know, I tend to operate my best under pressure, but not everybody's that way. Some people operate their best when they're happy and they're free and, you know, they're empowered. They're empowered to believe in themselves. And that's kind of what that score, James Horner's score in that chase scene reminds me of. It makes me think of just self-empowerment and, you know, there's a bit of teamsmanship going on in there. It's hopeful. What a great song. Anyway, I just went off on a song, but whatever, guys, whatever. Okay, the score. Now, for most people, Willow is going to be a 7 out of 10, and I think that's a very respectable score. It still merits you watching it. I still think a 7 out of 10 would be enough to get you to go check it out. That being said, I give this an 8.5 out of 10. That's how much I like Willow. It held up that much for me. I love this movie. It's not just a guilty pleasure viewing. I go to this movie when I want to feel a certain way, when I want to feel hopeful, when I want to have a good time, and when I want to be reminded of, I don't know, it's just a good base to touch for me every once in a while personally. It puts me right in line with my childhood self, and I'm proud at the certain aspects of myself that line up, you know? Like my little 8 and 9-year-old self is in full agreement with certain aspects of my 42-year-old self. And Willow is sort of like the benchmark that I can revisit and just kind of see where I'm at on that front. If that makes sense, does that make sense? I don't know. What movies do you have that just tie you into your childhood? List them below. I love you guys. Let's help grow the channel. It's plugging along. It's plugging along. I'll keep them coming. Friday mornings. Is it still good? Keep watching movies. Keep letting me know what you're watching and educating me in the comments as well. I do appreciate you. And I'll see you next time on Is It Still Good?
You're no woman.
Now, honey.
Not a woman!
Easy.
Gentlemen, not a woman! Meat lug.